And you thought it couldn't happen. Well, as we've been telling you for over 2 years now, Harvey Weinstein stands on the cusp of having this little legal bit of theater put behind him. We told you from the jump that this had all been planned. This has all been staged. There was absolutely no intention to see this guy behind bars. Cy Vance damn sure wasn't going to do it, but no other DA wants to either. A lot of fools out there trying to make up all sorts of excuses and such now. You know, the people who basically believe whatever the white media tells them, so that when the whammy bammy comes, when the white media decides to do the inevitable double cross, these idiots just go along with it. The white media's experts at that. They'll have you saying one thing when you don't realize they're setting you up for what the real goal is, and the real goal has always been to reinforce white immunity from law. This has never, ever been about putting Harvey Weinstein behind bars. This has been about putting his perhaps potential legal vulnerability behind him. This has been about hammering the nails in the coffin of this would-be effort to actually make it where the law could touch white men, especially white men who own media outlets. Because these are the white men who are in charge of social engineering. And what they did was they already understood that there's a sizable part of the population who is already sympathetic to the idea of white immunity from law. So it's just a matter of play on that, and they'll go ahead, they'll go right along with it, wink and a nod. All you got to do is give them an excuse to do so, and they're already primed and ready to believe it. As I've said so many times before, you can be disgusted, but don't you dare be a damn fool and be surprised by this. You didn't need a crystal ball to see that this was coming. All you needed was 2 working eyes and at least 1 working brain cell. This is not conspiracy theorizing. This is pattern recognition. White supremacy bends over backwards to make sure that there are all sorts of safety nets and all sorts of trap doors and escape hatches for white men who happen to find themselves having a brush with the law. And Harvey Weinstein's no different. The cognitive dissonance is kicking in for some black people. I had some folks online basically telling me that, well, Harvey Weinstein, he'll certainly be done in media after this. And I'm sitting here going, you know, Roman Polanski sodomized a child in the 70s. A child. And this man fled to Europe, and the U.S. clearly has not been even attempting to get him back here. And not only has he been able to live free as a bird overseas, he's been making movies ever since. Didn't even break his stride. And he's been winning awards for it. In fact, the first major award that he got in the United States was way back in 2003 for The Pianist. It was the movie that put Adrian Brody on the map. And the Oscar goes to Roman Polanski for Best Pedophile. No, actually, he got the Best Director award in 2003 at the Oscars. It was bad enough that they even nominated the movie for anything. It's bad enough that you had actors who were willing to be in his movie, that he could even find anybody to make a movie for him. But the Oscars, just to make it clear, yeah, we're putting this in your faces. Yeah, this guy is an absolute reprehensible degenerate, an animal that belongs in a cage, and we're giving him the Oscar for Best Director. Because when a criminal happens to be white, it's never as bad as all that. You just need to get over it. And the Brits did the same thing. He got the BAFTA award for Best Film. And the French, same thing. At the Cannes Film Festival, he got the Palme d'Or. Now, why are we taking this little interlude through recent Hollywood history? The reason why is, in movie making in the US, they've got an expression that they call positioning. It's a marketing term. Before you can bring your movie to the theaters, part of the marketing has to be geared toward positioning the audience. Positioning means that you're psychologically conditioning the audience as to what to expect from the movie, so that they're not coming in expecting one thing and getting something else, and then next thing you know, your movie dies over opening weekend because you didn't make it clear what the audience was getting. They thought they were getting one thing and got something else. You got to make it clear to the audience, make it where the audience is ready and prepared for whatever it is that you're going to be throwing at them. The audience must be properly positioned. Well, you know, the same thing happens to go for society. The white supremacists, and we're talking about the ones who run the media, they have done the exact same psychological conditioning on the public when it comes to what to expect whenever some white person is accused of a crime. You are conditioned, the audience, the public is positioned to expect that there's not going to be punishment. You are positioned to expect that there's going to be some white splaining and some Jeffrey Toobin type, well, that's just the way it is, and you're an idiot for even challenging it. That's what they have positioned the public to expect. Now, in recent years, led by the black media, there has been a huge pushback against that. Now what's happening is we're having a new positioning taking place. The public's starting to get positioned where, hey, some of you guys got to go to prison. And the white supremacists are looking and going, no, we have to reassert the social engineering, reassert the social programming. And the media has been the tip of the spear on that one. In fact, it hasn't been just the tip of the spear. It's been the tip and the head of the spear and half the shaft on that one. The worst sexual predators are coming out of the white media. That's no surprise. Harvey Weinstein is being protected by them. Where is Me Too right now? Well, Tarana Burke, a.k.a. KRS2, she's busy putting up a picture that there is some dusty dude desperate enough to actually take a picture with her. I wanted to ask when's his first meeting with the parole board, but that might have been a little bit indelicate. But whoever this guy is, who I don't know, she found him on a park bench or something, but clearly some couch surfing loser who lives in his mama's basement. I would love to say this is proof that there's someone for everyone, but since I'm not entirely sure that that the picture wasn't totally photoshopped, I'm not making any avowals as to whether or not KRS2, aka Zucchini Nose, aka Gonzo Sniffer, I'm not going to say whether or not she's found true. I don't know what to call that, because it damn sure ain't love. But where is Tarana Burke at? Because as I explained, Harvey Weinstein has also assaulted black women. He's sexually assaulted black women too. And KRS2 tells us that she's concerned about protecting black women and girls, but she ain't too concerned about it because she ain't had nothing to say about Harvey Weinstein. And whenever you ask about him, she says, why do you think it's my job to go after white men? Didn't say it's your job to go after white men, but since you're so hot and bothered about making sure that black women and girls are protected, you might want to start with criticizing Harvey Weinstein and demanding that he go to prison, because after all, he did sexually assault at least one black woman that we know of. There's certainly others. Because wherever sexual rapacity among these white supremacists goes, you always that train is never late that there's going to be a number of black females who they try to take advantage of, because from time immemorial in this country, the most ready and defenseless targets for white supremacist sexual aggression has always been black females. They always know that they can violate a black woman with impunity. So whenever you ask me about Jeffrey Epstein, he's down there in Florida. Florida's one of the southern states, got a large black population. He's going off to the Virgin Islands. Those are black populated islands there, family. So he's got all this access to black females. Oh, but don't worry. He wouldn't put his hands on any black women. That has never been the case. Whenever you got some person who is addicted to running black people into the ground, whether it's Thomas Jefferson, whether it's Strom Thurmond or whomever, you can always find them cavorting with some empty-headed black female or some young black thing who doesn't know any better. And no, Jeffrey Epstein was no different. And Harvey Weinstein's no different. But Tarana Burke's not worried about that. She ain't bothered about that. And you know who else isn't bothered about it? Time's Up isn't bothered about it. We'll get to them in a minute. But you know, Jason made an excellent observation on his broadcast last evening. The white media and the white supremacists who run it arranged for all manner of outrageous displays during the Cosby trial. They wanted to make sure it was a full three-ring circus, all geared toward this guy's got to go to prison. They didn't want a steady drumbeat. They were setting off cannon fire. This wasn't a drumbeat. These were howitzers going off. They made clear that they emphasized this hyper-aggressive media narrative. Cosby has to go to prison. Well, when the jury came back, a hung jury the first time, instead of them saying, well, you know what? Maybe Cosby didn't do it, or at least we should move on, because after all, there's plenty of other sexual predators to go after. They were like, no, the retrial, the DA, what can they do differently the next time? It was almost like a demented version of the NFL or something. You know, your team lost this week, so what can we do next week to make sure we get them? That's what they were doing with Bill Cosby. They were creating a social narrative, a media narrative of Cosby has to go to prison. This is a show that they're putting on. That's where the white media comes in. They know exactly how to frame this just like a television show. Season 1 of Getting Cosby. You heard of what was it, that novel Killing Pablo, or Get Shorty? Well, this one is called Get Cosby. Season 1, we came close but didn't get him, but that's all right. We've already made sure that we told the public he's guilty as hell. It's just a matter of put him on trial enough times so you get a jury that says, send that nigger up the river. And they arranged for all kinds of over-the-top crap to happen, mainly for the sake of creating images. Dr. John Henry Clarke warned about that. The white media controls image. They're obsessed with that. That's how they control people, through the use of images. And this stuff was clearly staged. But the thing about it is, the white media goes ahead and puts it out there anyway. And the public looks and goes, hey, there's some topless thought running around. She's scrawled all sorts of words on herself. She's not crazy. Obviously, Cosby must be guilty or something. That's what the narrative is. The narrative is not, this person is clearly insane. It's just a matter of, let's go ahead and put this out there because at the very least, it's going to get people's attention. We're trying to keep attention on Cosby. And as long as we're talking about Cosby or R. Kelly or Tavis Smiley or whomever, we're not talking about Weinstein. We're not talking about Molester Moonves. We're not talking about Louis C.K. or Kevin Spacey or Matt Lauer or Charlie Rose. And I'll be here till 3 a.m. naming just a few of them. We're not talking about them as long as we're talking about Cosby. That's the point. This was a gigantic distraction campaign. And as you see, the white media is not trying to cover Weinstein. You had the 2018 midterms going on during the Cosby trial. As far as the white media was concerned, that don't bother us. So the hell what that there's a midterm election going on? We still got plenty of time to talk about Cosby. Okay, well, what about Weinstein, the most notorious sexual predator of the 21st century? That phrase, I keep using that and I want you to use that too. Harvey Weinstein is the most notorious sexual predator of the 21st century. The white media loves to label. We need to start labeling as well because they label people with lies. We label people with the truth. Harvey Weinstein raped, sexually assaulted, or harassed 100 women. And these are actresses and actress wannabes we're talking about here. So why is it that we don't have any instances of any attention-whoring females leaping over the barricades at Harvey Weinstein's trial? Why don't we have any topless thoughts running around, assailing him and screaming words and such at him? Why is it that we don't have that going on? Why isn't that happening? This stuff was planned, what you saw at the Cosby trial. It had been prearranged and staged specifically for the cameras. That's the reason why whenever you saw that heifer, you'd always see Bill Cosby in the background or in the foreground of it. They did that deliberately. They wanted this skank in the photo because this is about controlling people through images. Something that outrageous people will talk about. Weinstein ought to have women charging at him daily. They ought to be outside of his freaking house. They ought to be outside of his freaking hotel, wherever the hell he's holed up at. Instead, nobody's even done anything like that even once. So apparently the white media is not the only ones who have decided that Harvey Weinstein is a back burner issue. Apparently his victims have decided the same thing. And all of these would-be feminists who love to say, oh, I was sexually assaulted and that's why I had to throw things at Bill Cosby and yell at him. And that's why I was sexually assaulted. Well, you would think the most notorious sexual predator of the 21st century, that he would have an entire army of women, particularly white women out there, doing whatever it took to make it clear this guy has to go down. But you don't see that happening. And there's no outrage from all of these bra burner female feminists that you see on these network anchor shows. The most notorious sexual predator of the 21st century, and you don't see any of these sawed-off, half-cocked feminists trying to put on some sort of outrageous display, and the police are making sure nobody even gets close to him. Family, you need to learn to recognize the difference between a natural, organic display and a phony baloney staged incident. So where is the Me Too crowd at now, huh? Where's Time's Up at? Time's Up is nothing more than an anti-black propaganda mill created, funded, financed, and directed by the white media moguls themselves, who we know to be the biggest rape-happy sexual predators on the planet. And when you look at Time's Up's Twitter page, you notice how they got a whole bunch of black women all over it. The only black woman who actually had anything to do with Time's Up was that black woman who they had allegedly running it, and they got rid of her pretty fast. Why are they putting black women's faces up there? Because it's black men who they're attacking. This is what the white media thinks they're doing. They think they're legitimizing their attacks on black people, trying to use black men as distractions, and they're trying to use black women as the faces for it so they can say, well, see, this isn't racist at all. Why, look at all these black women. Yeah. And if you look over to the right, you see Toni Morrison. They put up some insipid Twitter tweets about her. I already told you about Toni Morrison, that skank. This woman was one of the biggest anti-black male zealots who ever lived. So she's in good company, even posthumously. But notice how they got black women all over this. Black women have nothing to do with leading Time's Up. They don't run Time's Up. They don't finance Time's Up. And they don't benefit from Time's Up. So what the hell are you putting black women's faces out there for? Because Time's Up is an anti-black racist organization that tries to scapegoat and attack black men as a proxy in order to keep attention off the white men who are committing all the sexual assault. And they're going to have some pictures with some black women up there as a means of trying to deflect the accusation that it is clearly racist. You got black people saying, hey, when are you going to do something about Matt Lauer? When are you going to do something about Molester Moonves? Time's Up is not very interested in that. Well, Time's Up already declared that they were watching events with Molester Moonves. Yeah, they were watching him. They were just watching. They weren't saying anything, weren't going to do anything. They weren't interested in Molester Moonves, and they weren't interested in Charlie Rose. They weren't interested in Matt Lauer, and they're not interested in Harvey Weinstein. They put up a couple of Twitter tweets, and as far as they're concerned, now they've got plausible deniability. Now they've got cover. And it shouldn't be a surprise at all that Time's Up is completely silent on this. As we've seen this week, Steven Spielberg has an adopted black daughter. And just like Charlize Theron, who is psychologically torturing that black boy that she has in her vile clutches, Steven Spielberg, his adopted black daughter, she's now going into porn. And she's already said that she had been sexually assaulted, not by the beard, by the way. We always got to make sure that the reporting makes sure. She didn't say that it was Spielberg who did it, by the way. And I'm sitting here thinking, well, that's a distinction without a difference. If this guy is supposed to be her father, her guardian, and primary caretaker, how the hell is anybody getting close to this girl? Because you know that his white daughters don't seem to have stories like that. Or at the very least, if this black girl has been assaulted, time to start asking some serious questions of those white daughters, too. Chances are they got some similar stories, or at least they should, unless, of course, Steven Spielberg has been doing what a lot of these white celebrities do whenever they get their hands on a black child, basically using them as a house pet. But this adopted black daughter, in addition to the fact that she was sexually assaulted, now she's going into porn and claiming that she doesn't want to have to be dependent on Spielberg's money. Dude's old as hell. If she's supposed to be his adopted child, surely there's some sort of inheritance from one of the most profitable filmmakers in American history. The guy who created the summer blockbuster season with Jaws, that's Spielberg's biggest contribution to filmmaking. And yet he's got his adopted black daughter, quote unquote, saying she needs to be free of having to get money from him. She doesn't want to be dependent on him. That seems to me like she's saying something. What she's saying is, I can't be financially dependent on this guy. Well, that's Father of the Year material right there. Seems like she's trying to get free of him. I don't want to be dependent on this guy. That's the kind of talk that a prisoner says. But the white media is not interested in that. So why do I bring up Spielberg? Because Spielberg, along with his wife, Kate Capshaw, Spielberg was one of the big contributors to Time's Up. When Time's Up first got started and had their so-called legal defense fund, which to date has not defended anyone, you notice that Spielberg gave $2 million to it. And I also pointed out to you that there were other individuals and entities, such as the big talent agencies. William Morris Endeavor, I already broke down for you how Rahm Emanuel's brother, Ari Emanuel, the guy who was the head of Endeavor Talent Agency, which eventually merged with William Morris, showed you how Terry Crews would make a complaint against Adam Vennet. Adam Vennet was one of the representatives at Endeavor, William Morris Endeavor now. And that's the guy who Terry Crews accused of having groped him. One of Ari Emanuel's representatives. And when you look at the talent agencies, you see that these gatekeepers of media, that's where the most sexual predation takes place. The individuals who are the gatekeepers. Oh, you want to have some photographs taken, or you want somebody to be your representative or your agent, or you're trying to get representation somewhere. You're trying to get someone to get you in front, to get you a meeting with the producer or what have you. That they're grooming people. They're just professional sexual predator groomers is what they are. The so-called talent agencies. But I did videos pointing out to you the money behind Time's Up and how a disproportionate number of the individuals who have put big money into Time's Up, they have all of these sexual assault allegations against them. Some proven, others still in the realm of rumors and gossip. But one of the things that didn't get mentioned but can be mentioned now, why did I keep, even then I mentioned Steven Spielberg's name. Why? Because there have long been rumors about Steven Spielberg in Hollywood. There have long been rumors about him. Now, while rumors don't make it true, the truth of the matter happens to be he's got a black daughter who said that she was sexually assaulted, and apparently the beard didn't do a damn thing to protect her. People have also been asking if perhaps he knew more than he was letting on. How bad did this negligence actually become? How bad was it? Does Spielberg know something about this dirty little incident or incidents, because it's never just one time? Does he know something about the sexual assaulting and raping of his adopted black daughter that he's not letting on to? How much does Spielberg know? And yet Spielberg, especially with Heidi Fleiss and such, I mean, the guy, he's been seeing escorts and whole 9 yards. He's been into all that stuff. In many ways, Spielberg, even by reputation alone, he's a somewhat more sanitized version of Woody Allen. But the truth of the matter is, why is it then that Spielberg would spend $2 million on Time's Up? Because you look at the list of the big donors, whether it's Mark Wahlberg or what have you, and all of these guys have got sexual, all sorts of innuendo, if not proven claims of sexual impropriety against them. And Spielberg's no different. So what happened was all these individuals who have these allegations against them or this gossip and rumors about them that people seem to think have some measure of credibility, these guys decided to unionize. And that's where Time's Up came from. These were the individuals who started Time's Up, put their money into it. And they've got control of the media, so they're able to make it prominent. They can just arbitrarily decide Time's Up is going to be leading, and this is a means of trying to give legitimacy to something. It's one of the means that the white media uses in order to control the public. First thing you have to do, if you're going to communicate to any large mass group of people for the sake of indoctrinating them, you have to establish yourself as an authority. You have to establish the fact that you know more about the subject than they do. That's why you got the white media constantly using so-called experts. Always, we have so-and-so from the University of thus and such, and so-and-so from this think tank. Think tanks are nothing more than white supremacist hubs. That's all they are. I hope we've educated you enough on that. But they always are trying to bring an expert in there. And the reason why is not because the person's going to say anything groundbreaking. They could have had the network anchor spokes chump say it instead, but it's a matter of they're trying to establish their authority, that this white media outlets, the misinformation and disinformation we're giving you, this happens to have the air of authority to it. You can believe these lies because we have an authority bringing it to you. It's a typical white media trait. But how do you establish somebody as an authority? You got to make sure that they're visible. Make sure that they're in front of you, make them prominent. Malcolm X talked about that. You choose this bootlick, you choose this traitor, you make them prominent as a means of trying to legitimize them. And that's what happened with Time's Up. It's a matter of taking this white supremacist sock puppet organization, a professional distraction campaign, and make them legitimate. Give them legitimacy that they don't actually have. And when you look at the money behind Time's Up, now it becomes a hell of a lot more clear. We've been telling you, follow the money. And when you follow the money, it leads to directly, there's not even 1 degree of separation. It leads directly to a group of white men who have long had credible, proven allegations of sexual assault or very credible rumors and gossip, very believable rumors and gossip. That's what you wind up with. And then you wonder why it is that Time's Up seems conveniently disinterested in Molester Moonves. They aren't looking and pointing the dirty end of the stick at Julie Chen either and saying, how dare you stick up for this man? This man admitted to his sexual assault and predation on women, and you're sitting here proudly standing by him. Charlie Rose, how the hell can Gayle King try to get on any sort of moral high horse about R. Kelly or about Kobe Bryant or about anybody when she is proud that she is close friends with Charlie Rose even after he admitted to his sexual predation? How is it that Gayle King can do that? And why is the rest of the white media not saying, well, this is wrong what you're doing? Same reason that Mika Brzezinski could stick up for Mark Halperin. And that was not a scandal. Yeah, whenever it comes to a white man who's been accused of something, we got to condition the public that, whoa, hold on. If a white man is accused of something, then that means it's not so bad. And if a white man denies that he did it, well, that means it didn't happen. At the very least, you cannot see that as being as bad as a black man. Doesn't matter how innocent he is. The fact that he was accused, well, if he didn't do this, he must have done something. That's the usual line that gets dragged out, whether it was against O.J. Simpson, whether it was against Trayvon Martin, whether it was against Bill Cosby. Well, if he didn't do what we say he did, you know he had to have done something because he's black. The old I'm white and I say so. So that's the reason why you don't see Me Too or Time's Up. These are sock puppets. Who was it who presented KRS-Two to you? Who was it who took Zucchini Nose and put her in front of the cameras? The white media did. And they made sure that you had all of these actresses, and Rose McGowan, who looks like a freaking organ grinder's monkey at this point. I'm seeing her standing beside Tarana Burke, and you know she must have been happy as hell. As many plastic surgery botched disasters as she's had, clearly, I don't know if she's been under the knife too many times or if she chose the wrong surgeon or perhaps an odd combination of the two, but either way, clearly she screwed her face up. And she was clearly happy as a fly at a dung heap that she could stand beside KRS-Two. And I'm sure she was sitting there thinking, hey, if nothing else, I'm going to look like the most beautiful woman in the world next to this freaking troll. So that's the reason why they did that. You got this woman with this face that could clearly launch 1,000 ships to escape her. And she's got a body shaped like a busted can of biscuits. And yet you got Rose McGowan hanging out with her, and you got the white media putting her on covers. And sure, they're getting their jollies by saying, hey, take a look at welcome to the freak show. But it's also a matter of, this is how they're trying to legitimize her. Short term, they have no long-term plans for any of their tools, and KRS-Two is no different. But the point of the matter was, they wanted her to be the thin end of the wedge because they knew that, as she herself explained, she's never going to be talking about Harvey Weinstein. She's not going to be bringing any attention to Charlie Rose or Matt Lauer. But she will be acting to co-sign every bit of distraction about Bill Cosby. And look the other way. Let's go ahead and look at R. Kelly. And as long as we're looking at them, we're not even talking about all of these guys over here, all of these white men who have admitted to what they did. Bill Cosby and R. Kelly, they're sitting here denying everything. Now, David Bowie denied having committed statutory rape, and the white media says, well, we can't take down our heroes. And you got a number of others. Rob Lowe, he videoed, just like R. Kelly, allegedly. Rob Lowe had sex with an underage girl, and well, his defense is, well, I didn't know. I didn't know she was underage. R. Kelly has not even gotten that far. He's like, I don't know what the hell you're talking about. There's video. I don't know who's in that video, but it wasn't me. But that's the thing. Rob Lowe admitted to it. And all he had to say was, well, hell, they didn't tell me they were underage. They looked around 18 to me. And the white media does not say, you know what, you're going to be held accountable. But R. Kelly, on the other hand, something that allegedly happened way back in the 90s, and here we are being told about it morning, noon, and night. Now, if you want to claim that, well, you know that R. Kelly's dirty as sin, and you know that R. Kelly is guilty, first thing that comes to my mind is I want to see all the sexual predators locked up in the order that they committed their crimes. And I want the white media to give equal attention to all of them. If you're going to be worked up into a lather about R. Kelly for years on end, then I'm going to be asking, where's all of this heat and where's all this smoke for Matt Lauer? If I'm going to be hearing about Bill Cosby, then I want to hear about Les Moonves. If I'm hearing about Tavis Smiley, I want to be hearing about Charlie Rose. Because you see, the only ones that they seem to have all that fervor for, the only ones that they seem to get worked up into a lather over are the black ones. The white ones, out of sight, out of mind. And that's deliberate. Got to stop letting the white media manipulate you. It was obvious from the jump that Weinstein was not going to go down, because you look at how the huge, just the excruciatingly clear difference between how they just made just this orgy of attention for Cosby. We got to make sure that there's a cover showing all of his victims. Well, about Weinstein, the best they could do for Weinstein was they had about 5 or 6 women on a cover, arms locked. But they didn't give that anywhere near the attention that they gave that collage of Cosby's victims, his victims. It was a white supremacist media distraction. It couldn't have been more clear. So we've been telling you for years, and as the verdict got near, it was time to go ahead and tell you, if you're expecting there's going to be some sort of conviction, well, you better get your hope. You better not raise your hopes. Because this had all been arranged. You thought to yourselves that because the white media gave a couple of unflattering headlines to Weinstein that they would not be able to pivot away from it. The white media are the masters of going in one direction and then whipsawing you and almost giving you whiplash as they switch into another. They're masters of that. People believe whatever the white media tells them. They tell you one thing on Monday, something else different on Tuesday, and then something else completely different on Wednesday. And like sheep, the people just nod their heads and go, okay, okay. They've conditioned the public to accept whatever the white media tells them. That's why you got to be plugged into the black media. Otherwise, what happens is the white media sets up this stuff and you get to be one of those idiots going, no, Weinstein got to go down. It would be the end of Me Too if he didn't. Weinstein got to go. He ain't going to get off the hook, man. The Me Too is too powerful. No, Me Too was and Time's Up were created to punish you as a black man. They were created to go after you. They were not created to go after the Weinsteins and the Moonveses and the Lauers and the Spaceys and all the rest of the trash. It wasn't created to go after them. So why did the white media's coverage of Weinstein change so abruptly? Why would the same media who detailed his reprehensible behavior before now suddenly be saying that, well, it's not enough to get a conviction, though? You see, Cy Vance had an open and shut case 5 years ago with that, I think it was an Italian actress. And she was one of a few actresses who the NYPD had wired up to get the goods on Weinstein. Cy Vance looked at her case and he said, I ain't bringing this one. The case was fine. For once, the NYPD got it right. The case was fine. But Cy Vance is like, yeah, that's the problem. The case is rock solid. I'm just not bringing this case. What's wrong? There are problems with the case. What's the problem with the case? This one would actually get him locked up. That's the problem. So Cy Vance decided that he would instead put together this pretzel of a prosecution. The very structure of this prosecution was clearly overly complicated for a reason. It was to make it where it would be very difficult to try to actually convict him on this. And even if you did convict him, well, hell, he's got excellent grounds for appeal because the structure of this prosecution was so irregular. That's the reason why Cy Vance set it up this way. It's a matter of, hey, there's going to be loopholes on top of loopholes on this one. The white media's had 2 years to say if the Weinstein case was weak. They've had 2 years to go ahead and say, well, we've looked at this case and we've already determined that there's really no real chance of conviction. People just better be ready for an acquittal. They've had 2 years to say that. They've had 2 years to tell the public that Weinstein's victims weren't sympathetic enough, or perhaps there was too much dubiousness about the claims, or, well, unfortunately it's not specific enough, and too much of this is he said, she said. They've had 2 years to detail whatever deficiencies or problems they thought there was with this case, but they didn't say anything. Now, here we are right before the jury gets ready to issue a verdict. And all of a sudden, the white media is saying, don't expect a conviction. You better not be expecting a conviction. Oh, sorry, but Weinstein's probably going to walk. Now, why would they change on a dime like that? It's not like there's been any new evidence admitted into trial, like some sort of shocking exculpatory evidence or some sort of stunning revelation in the courtroom. Nothing's happened. In fact, this case has been just the very epitome of a milquetoast trial. But of course, they made sure that there's no cameras in the courtroom. See, they made sure there were cameras for the OJ trial. We're gonna have a televised nigger lynching. Harvey Weinstein, no cameras, please. The white media has not been preparing people for an acquittal, and it's not as if they didn't know the same thing the black media knows. There has not been an O.J. Simpson glove moment in the Weinstein trial. There hasn't been some Mark Fuhrman exposed as a racist moment. In other words, there hasn't been anything where the defense has proven that, oh, here's the evidence that shows that my client could not possibly have done this, or the police are dirty and they're just out to get my client. Maybe they don't like Jews or something. There hasn't been anything to discredit the police investigation, and there hasn't been anything to prove that the defendant is innocent. You see, Johnnie Cochran utterly devastated the Los Angeles DA's pathetic case against his client. He proved that A, my client couldn't possibly have done it, and 2, look at the cops who are trying to claim that he did. These guys are a bunch of racists through and through. What was O.J. Simpson's defense? A, there is no evidence that I did it, and B, the cops are a bunch of racists who are trying to frame me. Well, you have to prove that the cops are racist. They proved that the lead investigator on the case, Mark Fuhrman, is a racist. And as far as O.J. Simpson didn't do it, hey, if the glove don't fit, you must acquit. Johnnie Cochran proved his case. Weinstein hasn't proved anything. He's like, well, yeah, I did it, but it was all consensual. Take my word for it, because, hey, I wouldn't lie. And don't believe those other 100 women over there either, you know. They're all a bunch of thwarted actress wannabes, every single one of them, you know. And the thing is, Cy Vance deliberately has done this in a way. He's not interested in trying to put any big Hollywood actresses on the stand to claim that they are victims, because of the fact that a jury would be a hell of a lot more likely to look and say, hey, these are actresses who we've seen, we like these actresses, and this scummy looking, looks like a vagrant Weinstein, surely this bastard must have done it. He's not doing that. He's not trying to find women who he actually could make a case against Weinstein for, and that's deliberate. Now, you would think that perhaps the New York Attorney General's office would get involved and say, hey, if Cy Vance ain't going to bring a case, we will. But as Governor Cuomo has shown, when it comes to police murders of black people, he'll get out there and say something halfway sympathetic to the cause for half a moment. And then as soon as he's gotten some headlines that make him, so he can say, see, I'm on the side of the people, then he immediately goes back to his office and we ain't doing nothing. So we already know what to expect from the New York Attorney General's office. Weinstein's lawyer hasn't done much more than to say it was all consensual and to tell the women to take some responsibility. You know, that's a far cry from if the glove doesn't fit, you must acquit. And yet the white media is so impressed by that. Oh, she said the women need to take personal responsibility. Oh, the prosecution's case just fell apart. Oh, you better expect a Weinstein acquittal. Oh, he's as good as free at this point. That's what they've done with Harvey Weinstein. His attorney hasn't even presented a case, and the white media is already telling the public with breathless anticipation, oh, he can't possibly go to prison now. His defense put up such a stunning defense of him. They put up such a stunning case. She said that his victims need to take personal responsibility. Oh, what prosecutor could possibly prevail against such a stunning defense, such a rock-solid defense? Does he have an alibi? No. Has he proven any sort of mitigating circumstances? No. Extenuating circumstances? No. Does he have any witnesses that say otherwise? No. Any testimony otherwise? No. Evidence otherwise? No. Then how the hell can you say that this man is a sure bet to be acquitted then? He hasn't even defended himself. He's admitted to it. That's the point. That's the entire point. The goal from the very jump was to make black men into the face of sexual predation, just like they did with Clarence Thomas in the 90s. Just like they did with the Central Park Five. Anytime a white man's accused of a crime and is getting any amount of media attention, the white media immediately pivots to a black man. Like, shut down all coverage of this white guy over here. Let's find a nigger that we're going to lynch in the media. And we're going to be demanding, when are you going to do something about this guy? Doesn't matter whether he did anything or not. You got some case of some white college student who apparently got killed, and they're claiming that some black teenage boys were responsible for it, and they're plastering these boys' faces. These are kids like 14 years old. Now, if they're white, you don't plaster their faces, but if they're black, you plaster their faces. Because you want to make it clear, these are some niggers over here. One set of rules for white offenders, another set of rules for black people who are accused. A lot of people have complained that Weinstein has not been out here pleading his case in the court of public opinion. You want to know why? Because he doesn't have to. You only try to win in the court of public opinion if you feel that you don't have any friends in the system. If you already know that the DAs and the judges are a bunch of white supremacists looking to lock you up, and that they're not on the payroll, and hence they're already going to be coming at you, well, then you got to do that. Michael Jackson had to do that. He had to give a statement on video to tell the public, I am innocent. R. Kelly's got to be giving interviews to Gail Skank. Black men have to do that because they don't have any power in the system. Weinstein doesn't. The DA's on the payroll, probably the judge too, and you better be looking at those jurors. That's part of the reason why I keep coming back to that book, When Corruption Was King by Robert Cooley, where he explained in Chicago that they had the system game, the mob had the system game there from top to bottom. When it comes to the selection of judges, they tell the public that, oh, the judges are selected randomly by computer. And Robert Cooley was like, man, that's not who actually, sure, there is a computer system in place, but ultimately who gets what cases on their docket comes down to the clerk of court. And we got the clerk in our back pocket. And the same thing goes for jury duty. We can make it where we get our person on the jury too. And you think that's changed? Come on. You cannot possibly compare Bill Cosby to Harvey Weinstein. It's asinine to do so. You can try to compare R. Kelly to Rob Lowe, but R. Kelly denies any wrongdoing. Rob Lowe has already copped to it. But that's what the white media wants to do. And you have a substantial portion of the population who likes that narrative because, as far as they're concerned, Harvey Weinstein's immunity from law also is their own. That's the principle, such as it is, that they're trying to protect. They understand that this is a lie meant to try to create some sort of phony baloney false equivalence between black men accused of wrongdoing and the actual white offenders. But as we see with the white media revealing what we've been telling you for the last couple of years, now it's gone beyond that. With Gail Skank and such, it's a matter of, well, it's not even a matter of we're trying to dirty up the victim here. Now we're going to go straight into the toilet. You got a black man and his daughter who die in a helicopter crash. Well, now's the time for us to smear him. Now we're going to smear this guy. Hey, Michael Jackson's dead. This is the perfect time to be making all sorts of libelous and slanderous claims against him now. That's the strategy now. These black men are dead, hence libel laws and slander laws no longer apply. And that's why the white media is going after Rick James and others. This is the white media distraction. And of course it's over the top. Of course it's reprehensible. Of course it's egregious. Of course it is absolutely venal, corrupt, perverted, because the individuals behind it are reprehensible, venal, corrupt, and perverted. Of course this is something that's outrageous. That's the point, so it gets your attention. The goal is to manufacture this lie that black men are the problem. Oh, these black men you see. Well, it's these black men here. They've already made it clear. The Nazi media in America has made it clear. We're not talking about white guys under any circumstances. It doesn't matter how much they do. It doesn't matter who they've done it against. Doesn't matter how many times they've done it. We're not talking about them. We're going to be talking about you. I told you, they have to be this blatant about it because white supremacy's MO is to subject their victims to a daily breaking process. So they cannot be gentle about it. They cannot be suave about it. They cannot be subtle. And what they're doing cannot be ambiguous. It must be clear. It must be excruciatingly clear. It must be in your face. It must be wrong, and you must know that it is wrong. It's not enough for you to be looking and going, hey, this is a little bit different, isn't it? You got to be looking and going, whoa, this is way the hell off. That's the point. You cannot condition anyone through small, gentle measures. You have to have it where they clearly understand that there are two systems in place, one where you can expect to be punished and you should expect for them not to be, and that you must be conditioned to accept that. It must be clear that there are two systems, and that even if you do bring enough pressure to have a white sexual predator charged, he certainly won't be convicted. The public's reaction to this won't be one of outrage, though. It's going to be one of resignation at best and silent approbation at worst. You have a substantial number of the people in the public who understand that Harvey Weinstein's immunity from law, the same white supremacist white privilege and white prerogative that insulates Harvey Weinstein from being punished, that's exactly what Brock Turner depends on. And I detailed in my White on White crime series that this is not a matter of money. You got a ton of white men who are accused all the time, every year, of committing all sorts of horrible sexual crimes, and these guys walk out. Meanwhile, you got all sorts of black men who clearly did not do what the hell they were charged with, and yet these guys get gavelled up and in many cases wind up in prison. It ain't about the money, it's about the skin color. Some people are too stupid to figure that out, though. The public will be conditioned to give up because they're looking and going, well, the DA ain't doing nothing and the Attorney General ain't doing nothing and the white media is not making an issue of it and nobody's doing anything about it. The institutions that are supposed to be carrying out so-called justice, they're the very ones orchestrating this two-tiered injustice system. The same way they simply accept seeing the government allow rich white men to get away with destroying the economy and robbing the public to the tune of billions of dollars, and they also get a bailout afterwards, the public will also accept seeing white media moguls get away with rape. But I don't give a dang what any handkerchief-headed Negro tries to tell you, or whatever white supremacist may be lurking on the sidelines, thinking to themselves, well, hell, I do stuff just like Weinstein, and I engage in a lot of other larcenous activity, and I need that legal immunity too, and I ain't going to have these niggers take that away from me. So they don't actually believe that Weinstein's innocent. They know he's guilty of sin, but they also know that they need that legal immunity as well, and they're not going to see that system of legal immunity for themselves undermined. It is a lie. A conspiracy that has of anything but silence. They know that these are just talking points that they're using to defend their true objective. They know what the scam is and they're playing right along. Now, while Weinstein's money does allow for him to be a little more rapey than the average, it's not his money that allows him to get away with it. Bill Cosby has a few $100 million in the bank. And tonight he sits in prison. And you didn't have anybody in the white media saying expect for Cosby to get an acquittal. Or you better prepare yourselves for a hung jury or something. They weren't saying that. Instead, they were saying, well, so what kind of prison can you expect Cosby to go to? You think they'll put him in Cook County or, well, granted, that's in Chicago, but Bill Cosby used to live there and maybe they'll lock him up there. What prison do you think he's going to? You think he's going to Folsom? You going to Rikers? Maybe they'll send him to Alcatraz. Maybe they'll reopen Alcatraz and throw him out there. Where do you think he's going? That's what the scuttlebutt was about. They were preparing the public mind that Bill Cosby is supposed to go to prison. You have the expectation that it would be unacceptable if he didn't go to prison. It would be an outrage if this black man didn't go to prison. You see, the DA was determined to put Bill Cosby in prison. They brought one criminal case after the next until they finally found or manufactured a jury who would convict him of something. And as I explained on my Twitter page, the jury that convicted Bill Cosby had 10 white people on it. The jury that's letting Weinstein walk has 7 white people on it, and 5 of them are white men. By the way, a similar dynamic played itself out in the O.J. Simpson trial. With the O.J. Simpson trial, in that first jury, you had like 4 or 5 black people on there. You had like 3 black women, at least 1 black man, and I think a biracial on there. Johnny Cochran understood how important it was not to have, even if you got 1 black person in there who understands what's going on, you don't want that person to be coerced into giving their approbation and support to a verdict that they know in their heart is not legal and is not right. You got to have a few black folks in there. That way they can depend on each other for buttressing and support. Johnny Cochran understood that jury composition matters. That's the reason why you got these DAs who are so absolutely hell-bent that there will be no black men allowed on a jury whatsoever. There are supposed to be laws that keep them from doing that, but the judge is looking saying, well, just because they've excused every black person that's ever been put up there, well, that doesn't matter. Because what they're thinking is, as long as there's only one at most two, what'll happen is hopefully they'll give in to peer pressure on that jury. Hopefully they can be pressured. That's the whole point. That's how you get clowns. Like during the first Michael Slager trial, you had that moist scumbag, whatever his name was, that fat chump who the DA put up there, even though the DA had charges pending against him. And he was the only Negro on the jury. Well, I put Negro in quotes. And here he was making excuses for a hung jury for a bastard who murdered a black man in cold blood. So with the second OJ trial, they made sure ain't gonna be no niggers on this one. So for the civil trial, they wanted to make sure we're going to excuse as many of these niggers as we can. And okay, the civil trial, that was basically much ado about nothing. OJ was ready for that one. So it's a matter of you wasted a lot of time. Hope you feel good about your judgment because you'll never be able to collect. However, when that trial took place in Las Vegas, where they accused OJ Simpson of stealing his own belongings, that was an all-white jury. Whatever happened to a jury of your peers? See, in New York City, whites are like almost 40% of the population. They're not a majority. And yet they are a majority on the Weinstein trial, and white males consist almost half the jurors in the Weinstein trial. Meanwhile, O.J. Simpson, well, we had to put an all-white jury there. And in fact, I think if my memory serves, I believe that it was a majority white female jury. So it wasn't just a white jury, it was a majority white female jury because this is courtroom theatrics. You want to know where jury composition comes from? You can look at those freaking courthouses, and they're the ones who have the most to do with who's going to be called for jury duty. And they just don't send out those summons at random. They can make them go exactly to the places that they want them to go to. And then when it comes time to do the voir dire process, where you start selecting jurors, well, the judge is going to ignore it when all of the black men are conveniently excused. Every black man is going to be facing some sort of peremptory challenge. Oh, this nigger can't be on the jury. This black man either. No niggers on the jury. And then when you bring up, wait a minute, state law says you cannot be excluding people based on race, the judge will say, well, I don't think that they were excused because of race. Why? They excused a couple of white people, and that means that there was no racism to it. Sure, they only excluded 2 white people, and they've excluded all the black men who have been selected during voir dire. But you know, there was nothing wrong here. It's a rubber stamp committee. Those courtrooms are just festering hellholes and sewers of anti-black racism. They understand exactly how it works there, mainly because of the fact that nobody's able to actually do oversight on them. You cannot punish judges for giving cover to racist maneuvers in the courtroom. You cannot punish DAs who do that mess. Nobody is punishing these clerks of court. Nobody's actually going after them to punish them. And what a surprise is the white supremacists who write the laws. It's usually some white supremacist who's the attorney general of the state. So of course there's not going to be any oversight. But you need to understand that Harvey Weinstein is being tried by a jury of his peers, a majority white jury, and a jury that's almost 50% white men. O.J. Simpson was tried by an all-white jury in Las Vegas and a majority white jury in Los Angeles. That's because the entire goal was we go ahead and make sure that we got people who don't look like the accused. Well, in that case, then you're just gonna have to put up with this injustice because we're in charge and we're making sure you're reminded. That's what the O.J. Simpson retrial was about. Because that's what it was in Vegas. It was a retrial. Everybody understood this had nothing to do with any phony allegations of theft, and it had everything to do with white people trying to reassert themselves because they had been traumatized by Johnnie Cochran. This was them getting back at OJ. It's a matter of, you should have pulled this stunt 10 years ago. I need you to understand that Brock Turner wasn't some one-off. He was just the one who got called out. Problem is, there's thousands others just like him. One of the most important forms of white privilege is immunity from law. Sure, there will be some white people who wind up getting hurt as a result of this legal immunity, but they're considered collateral damage. White supremacy thinks in abstracts. You do not consider the harm to an individual person or even a group of people, a large number of people, when you're thinking in abstracts. You're thinking about a particular system. So you're not thinking about harm to a person or even human beings. You're thinking about what needs to be done to keep this system going. That's what happens when you think in abstracts. Because the benefits of that white legal immunity far outweighs the occasional unintended consequences. The occasional collateral damage is far outweighed by the benefits of that white legal immunity. A lot of you are disgusted and we're sickened by all this, but you know what? This is a good thing that's happening here. Because a lot of Negroes like to argue with us. We spent the last 10 years basically slowly but surely watching as the would-be contrarians and these idiots who just want to argue for the sake of argument. We've been watching how these clowns have been getting more and more quiet over the years because as white supremacy has ramped up its efforts, they're not able to use their bullcrap talking points, and their stupidity is now being recognized for the idiocy it's always been on its face. So it's a matter of they can't talk anymore. And as I've told you, that's how our victory is going to take place. These idiots are never going to wave the white flag of surrender. They're too stupid to know that they're stupid. So instead, it's a matter of make sure that we continue to hammer our points, and we will know when we've won against these idiots, not when they admit that they're wrong, because they're never going to do that, but when we have made them to be silent. Jeffrey Toobin used to be talking all the time about how the public loves the police, and well, the reason these cops aren't going to prison is because nobody believes these niggers. We understand. The public understands that the cops are the good guys. That's the crap he was talking on CNN. And then came Michael Slager and Jason Van Dyke, and you have a bunch of others, Amber Geigers and others, and Jeffrey Toobin isn't talking that crap anymore. Now, he hasn't come back to say, well, you know what? The public clearly understands the police are the bad guys, and the police, their actions have turned the public against them. He ain't said nothing like that. In fact, he hasn't said anything at all. Because the white media understands that if you're not able to push your particular narrative, then you're better off saying nothing whatsoever. Just slink away and basically do not engage at that point, because now what's going to happen is you're going to reinforce the exact opposite of what you want. You're just going to be sit there beat like a piñata by your opponent saying, weren't you saying this dumb stuff a few months ago, Jeffrey? And hey, what do you say now? You can't let them put you in a position where you reinforce their narrative. That's how white supremacy works. That's how corrupt people work, because they're intellectually dishonest, and that usually means that they're morally bankrupt. So a lot of these dumb idiots who are out here talking that garbage about how, oh, Weinstein going down and all the rest of this idiocy, now they're silent because they understand they can't afford to speak at this point. Glory Hound Allred, Gloria Allred, she's been MIA for months now, not very eager to speak on the Weinstein case. She didn't have a problem with her daughter, Lisa Bloom, taking Weinstein on as a client, even though Allred is allegedly representing some of Weinstein's victims. But that just goes to show you, if they could have engineered that Gloria Allred's family would have been on both sides of the courtroom for Weinstein, they would have done it if they thought they could have gotten away with it. They tried it. They attempted it. That lets you know how blatant and in your face they want to be about this. Glory Hound Allred didn't stick her head out of the sand until it was time for the jury to deliberate. Then she slithers out of her hole and starts barking about how she won't be silenced. What a moron. And you know who else is a grade A certified tool? KRS-Two. Some of the lame brains have said that white supremacy isn't sophisticated. You take a look at what the hell they've done. They take some tool out of obscurity, and they make this fool prominent. They take tens of millions of dollars to invent an organization that is on its face claiming that, oh, it's time's up for these sexual predators. And then you look and see, well, it's the sexual predators who set this up. And then they have DAs who engineer their own failure in the courtroom. The old saying is that a grand jury can indict a ham sandwich. That's true, but what goes unsaid is that if the DA is engineering a sabotaging of his own case, a grand jury would fail to convict Jeffrey Dahmer. They would fail to bring charges against him. A grand jury would fail to indict the most guilty white man on the planet if the DA is attempting to sabotage his own case. That goes unsaid. And you need to understand that. This is what controlled opposition looks like. KRS-Two, Glory Hound Allred, Time's Up, and the rest of these shrieking harpies, fakers, frauds, phonies, and fools. This is what controlled opposition looks like. The white media has been completely and thoroughly disinterested in the most notorious sexual predator of the 21st century. You would think that with the idea that Weinstein was about to be acquitted, there would be wall-to-wall coverage of this. Instead, it's a matter of, oh, we're not thinking about that. Wait a minute here. You're just repeating the same old crap about the 2020 election. You're not saying anything new. Why the world is it you had no, and you can't tell me it's because you don't have time, because after Kobe Bryant died, they had nothing but time to speak up for Gail Skank. Oh, Gail Skank wasn't very concerned about the 2020 primaries when it came time to talk about Kobe Bryant. She was able to make room for that. She was able to make time for that. But they don't have time to talk about Weinstein. There's just not time. And you find that the white entertainment media doesn't seem very enraptured in the fact that the man who used to be the power broker in Hollywood, the man who made and produced important movies, that this one of the biggest media moguls on the planet, this guy's on trial for rape. You got Hollywood actresses who have been speaking out against him and denouncing him, and even had one who testified against him, and yet the white media is not calling this the trial of the century. They're not calling it anything at all. I'm the first person you've heard who has actually called Harvey Weinstein the most notorious sexual predator of the 21st century. The white media didn't do that. I did. So what does that tell you? Of course they're not going to be out there campaigning against Harvey Weinstein. Of course they're not going to be out there rioting against Harvey Weinstein. They are his fellow travelers and his co-conspirators. But the fact that we were able to accurately see all of this years out, it wasn't a prediction. It's a matter of, hell, when's the last time that they've ever gone to the mat to try to put some white man in prison for a crime? They don't. Whether it's Robert Durst or whomever. You have to wonder, with the OJ acquittal, was it really outrage that all this white media and much of the white public was showing? Were they really outraged, or were they envious? They're like, hey, that's our gig. We're supposed to be the ones immune from law. Oh, man, I'm so jealous. Put that nigger in prison. Now I feel inadequate. Is that what was going on? Perhaps. It doesn't take genius to see all this, family. It just takes the willingness to accept the fact that the biggest racists on the planet run the institutions that you go to every single day. The institutions that you think are supposed to be running things, they are in fact controlled by the criminals. The white media has spent hundreds of years glorifying and lionizing and sanctifying the most racist, vile institutions in the world and the white supremacists who run them. This has confused a lot of you. A lot of you have gotten real confused about that. And the reason why is you bought into the white media's lies. They put out all of this self-reverential propaganda and you bought it. The white media praised these white supremacist institutions. The white media presented them to you as being honorable and you bought it. So when someone says there's nothing decent about these institutions or the people who run them, or that these institutions, they lie to you about their processes. They claim that, oh, we have a very intricate process for how we run things. Like, no, there's not. You got a judge who's like, put that nigger in prison. You got a DA who's like, I'm not going to indict this white man. And if I do, well, hell, I'm throwing my own freaking case. They're corrupt as hell, dirty as hell. But you believe that there's that garbage they put forward about, oh, it's so intricate, the processes we go through. That's just nothing more than media theater. It's to get you to buy into the lie that, oh, you couldn't possibly rig this particular system because it's too complicated. There's too many people involved and it would be too difficult to keep that under wraps. White supremacy has an easy time keeping something under wraps if they want it to remain quiet. Strom Thurmond had a black daughter and people didn't know about that for 50 plus years. This while he was the patron saint of segregation and anti-black racism. So yeah, if white supremacy wants to keep something quiet, you won't hear about it. You already know that when it comes to presidents of the United States, that they're not elected, they're selected. And the same thing goes for these so-called primaries. They're people being chosen. You get the golden nod, they will grease the skids for you to be able to go right to the White House. It'll be easy. They can set it all up for you. And if they decided you're not going to the White House, they've got 100 ways to trip you up and shut you out. Now, you already understand that the system is arbitrary. There's a number of institutions that are arbitrary. Why is it that you have such a hard time believing that the courts are also just as rigged? A lot of black folks are being simple-minded at a time when you can't afford it. When someone tells you that they didn't write the laws to punish white supremacists, they wrote the laws to punish black people, you need to start understanding that. When they show you some white man being perp walked, either during the 2007 economic crash or Harvey Weinstein, a lot of you actually think that maybe just this once, white supremacy will use its institution to punish one of their own. Especially a white man with money, and when someone tells you that they don't do that, you refuse to believe it. All of this refusal to believe what's right in front of you, that's going to stop. We're not going to be arguing with people anymore. Yeah, I understand that that's the power of a 24/7 propaganda mill like the white media. I also understand that there's some black folks who watch way too much television and they believe everything that the white supremacist idiot box shows them. But the thing is, the day is late and the hour too freaking short at this point for us to be wasting time with people who watch too many reruns of SpongeBob SquarePants, or maybe you watch too many white supremacist cop dramas on TV. And you actually think that stuff you see on Law and Order reflects the real world. By the way, that's part of white supremacy's sophistication. They'll sit here and spin a really intricate yarn for you. It has verisimilitude. It's designed that way. It mirrors much of the complexity and the intricacies of real life. That's deliberate. It's so that you look and go, man, this kind of reminds me of the real world. It's actually very, very detailed and very complex and such. Yes, it's very sophisticated, but the purpose behind it is simple. It's to get you to believe whatever the lie is that they're trying to push. That's the power of a 24/7 propaganda mill. They can program you through nonstop lies and innuendo that the system is more or less fair when even you know that is a complete and total lie. They use their media for social programming as a tool of social engineering, and the primary goal is to maintain white supremacy by relentlessly pushing the lie that the big bad black man is the enemy and must be taken down, and this is the guy, and they understand, hey, wink and a nod, we're doing a little bit too much damage to our heroes and to our privileges. Let's point the finger at the niggers. Anytime that they suddenly pivot, they whipsaw from Harvey Weinstein to R. Kelly, that's the white media pointing the finger at a black man, and that is a dog whistle to the dominant society, and the dominant society knows that. It's the unspoken message, hey, get on code. Remember who the enemy is. You're our heroes. Hey, the system's not supposed to be doing this. Get back on code. Get with the program. So family, as Harvey Weinstein prepares to make it official, as he puts this little legal unpleasantness behind him, some of you fools have been saying, well, in L.A., they gonna get him in L.A. They couldn't even get Brock Turner, stupid. Kamala Harris, by the way, was Attorney General at that time. So that shows you how useful she was. But they couldn't get Brock Turner. There's a number of sexual predators in Hollywood. What's his name? Ed Buck. Oh, yeah, they finally arrested him. For a lot of these guys, these are adventures. You got these white guys who are used to their humdrum lives with their humdrum sexual predation. To a lot of them, it's exciting when they get arrested. Oh, this is definitely different. That's how, for a lot of them, they have a twisted view of reality. And for them getting arrested, that spices up their day because they know they're not going to prison. Jeffrey Epstein was probably like, oh, this is going to make a real fun tale to tell the boys next time we go off to Pedophile Island. You need to understand, in order to beat the white supremacists, first thing you're going to have to do is you're going to have to see the world the way that they do, so that you are able to game these bastards. You're never going to gain the upper hand on them until you can anticipate what they're going to do. Now, some of you don't like that because the truth of the matter is, it's not a matter of you're intellectually lazy. It's a matter of you're intellectually brain dead. And you try to hide behind a phony veneer of, oh, the white supremacist is so corrupt. I didn't say become one, stupid. But the thing about it is you have a complete inability to think like your enemy, so you will never beat your enemy. Sun Tzu talked about that in The Art of War. He said to know your opponent. Know your opponent and know yourself, and you will never be imperiled even in 1,000 battles. The white supremacist makes it a point to know you, and some of you are so simple-minded that's not a very hard task. Now, if you got a problem with the white supremacists, if you have a problem with what Weinstein's doing, then you better start to become a student of your enemy. Learn what your enemy's going to do before he does it. That way, when he tries some stupid maneuver, when he thinks that he's going to slip out the back door, he'll find you standing there waiting for him. That's how it'll be in the beginning. But eventually, as we aggregate our power, when the white supremacists, before they even begin the process of ginning up some new scam, we'll become these bastards off at the knees before they can even begin. That's what we did to Kamala Harris. I started the steady drumbeat against that heifer 2 years before she even announced her candidacy. Because it was very important to me that black people understand this woman is a Trojan horse. I wanted to make sure my people knew. So when she announced her candidacy, boom, we were right there waiting on her. And we became just this millstone around her neck that dragged her down. And she was helpless to stop it. See, that's the power of knowing your enemy. When your enemy shows up, you've got the edge. You know what you're dealing with, and you know what your enemy thinks he's going to do. Your enemy's sitting here thinking, oh, I got something for this nigger. Well, you don't have anything that I haven't anticipated. So it becomes like a Bruce Lee movie. You got this idiot just throwing all these punches and kicks at Bruce Lee, and he's just batting it aside. It's like, oh, man, you ain't even in my league. So for the slow coasts out there, many of whom basically sympathize with white supremacy. You got a lot of black folks out there who, truth be told, are just a bunch of undercover white supremacists. They identify with white supremacy, and they actually like the idea that white supremacy, as far as they're concerned, they see themselves as being dark-skinned Europeans. And by embracing and holding on to this white supremacist claptrap that they hear, they think that they're distinguishing themselves as being a smart Negro. I'm a good black because I believe everything that white supremacy tells me. So when you start talking about, hey, look at the racial disparity between how Bill Cosby is treated vis-a-vis Harvey Weinstein. You think Cosby wasn't guilty? He wasn't guilty of what he was put on trial for, that's for damn sure. And when you point out, hey, there's a racial double standard going on here. If you're going to lock up Bill Cosby, then there's a whole lot of white men who need to be locked up too. Well, they'll get theirs. Remember how long we've been hearing that? Why, I had a well-known Hollywood actress who decided that she was going to take issue with me on that. And I said, instead of wasting your time talking about Bill Cosby and R. Kelly, who we all know are going to go to prison, being black is 80% of going to prison right there. You need to be focusing all your attention on Harvey Weinstein, and you notice that she wasn't too passionate about that. Instead, she wanted to pivot to, the system's not perfect. I ain't talking about a perfect system. I'm talking about a guy who's guilty of sin, and you don't seem too bothered by that. You need to learn to recognize controlled opposition when you see it. Yes, Harvey Weinstein's going to walk because that's exactly what was supposed to happen from day one. Time's up. That was created as nothing more than a racist distraction campaign, funded, fueled, and financed and run by the very white supremacist sexual predators who have been carrying out a lot of this mess. And of course, the white media was not going to call out Time's Up. They were not going to call out Me Too. Of course, they were not going to. Look at who runs the white media. I hope that all this stuff we've been saying for the last few years, now that the most notorious sexual predator of the 21st century is about to walk, and no, if you're an idiot if you think that something's going to happen in California. We explained to you how this works. You still got some slowcoats who I guess think that they're being clever by disagreeing. You're just showing us how dumb you are. As Harvey Weinstein gets ready to fulfill what it is that we told you about, now what's the talking point going to become? I can tell you what the next talking point will be. The system failed. Wink and a nod. Same thing they said, all these black people getting killed. Well, the system, you see, yeah, but you're not talking about any new laws. When you want to go after Cosby, they started writing new laws. You got all these cops out here murdering black people. Well, they wrote some new laws, all right. Barack Obama put in place the Blue Lives Matters law, his executive order. And you had a number of states like Texas, Louisiana, Florida, many of the states of the old Confederacy. They were putting together their own Blue Lives Matter laws. Yeah, those are the laws getting put out there because they were wanting to reinforce, yes, we're doing this in your faces. Yes, we are sanctioning the murder of black people. We're going to condition you to do nothing about it because they understand that as the black media continues to beat the drum, they have now gone from, in just less than a year, they went from complete and total legal immunity to now these guys are doing at least the minimum, and they understand that this slippery slope, if not stopped, what's going to happen is any cop, 80% of convicting them will merely be accusing them of something. They understand that the pyramid will have been turned on its head. So for the idiots and slowcoats who keep wondering, what is it that the black media does? Morons who want to ask, what is it y'all is doing? We're informing the people, and you see what the results of that are. Information truly is a weapon in the right hands. We're giving you the verbiage. We're giving you the talking points. We're showing you what the future holds before it gets here. The black media is giving you the advantage, but you've got to be the ones to use it. Don't let these bastards get away with these relentless PR campaigns against us. If they want to bring up R. Kelly, you tell them, I'll cheerlead for R. Kelly to go to prison right after you start cheerleading for Rob Lowe to go to prison. When you get Mo Lester Moonves in prison, then you can come and talk to me about R. Kelly. I'll go ahead and say that Tavis Smiley ought to lose his job as soon as you point out to me why it is that Chris Albrecht still has his. We are not going to be doing this thing where every time some white supremacist in media winds up getting accused of something, we immediately distract and deflect onto some black man. We're not letting that happen. And anyone who gets out there deciding that they're going to aid and abet the white supremacist media's proxy war against us, that they're going to aid and abet, and they're going to try to sanction and justify and support the distraction campaign, the deflection campaign, you call them out for an enemy agent, because that's what they are. These same people who are so hot and bothered about R. Kelly and about Bill Cosby and about any other black man who the white media starts to trade gossip and scuttlebutt and rumors about, these are the same ones who ain't going to be saying boo when Harvey Weinstein walks. None of them will be saying, whoa, we need new laws, and that DA who didn't get him, get that bastard out of there and put someone in there who will get him. Harvey Weinstein is going to go right back to making movies, just like Les Moonves. He got his golden parachute. The white media tried to make it seem like Viacom had thrown him out the door with nothing. No, they didn't. They just reached a quiet backdoor settlement with him. Can't give you a platinum parachute. Here's a golden one instead. Harvey Weinstein, same thing. He'll be just like Roman Polanski, except unlike Roman Polanski, he won't have to leave the country. He'll have some front company. His brother Bob is still producing movies. Couple of allegations against him. Not like Harvey, but Bob Weinstein's got some allegations against him too. But just like Les Moonves, Harvey Weinstein will have some company that's an imprint or what have you. And truth be told, at his age, he's got enough money where he can just retire to some pedophile island all he wants. Don't be surprised if he turns up in the Virgin Islands somewhere and we get some claims about pedophilia against him. But that's what's going to happen to Harvey Weinstein. When this is over, he's using his insurance money to be able to settle all those cases. Okay, so it's kind of a bureaucratic headache, but it's not going to hurt him financially. And as far as the criminal cases goes, well, the DAs are going to just basically give themselves permission to ignore those. No attorney generals are coming after him. No U.S. attorneys are going to be coming after him. Nobody's going to be looking to make their careers on locking Harvey Weinstein up. And this is a good thing. Because a lot of you are starstruck. You let the white media lie to you. You buy whatever they say. And now what's going to happen is, how are you going to ignore this one? Now, some of you, of course, will be engaged in just a ludicrous masterpiece of cognitive dissonance. You'll see this right in front of you and go, well, it was the system. Yeah, was it the system that failed with Kevin Spacey too? And it was the system that Les Moonves hasn't even been indicted. Matt Lauer hasn't been indicted. No charges against them. Is that the failing of the system too? Or is the system working exactly the way that it's supposed to? And that's the problem. A lot of dumb people don't know what the hell they're talking about, claiming that this is the end of Harvey Weinstein. It's not. Let me go ahead and tell you how this is going to play out, because some people just don't pay attention. When this is over, two things are going to occur. First thing that's going to occur is the other would-be criminal cases against him are going to get pleaded down, or otherwise are going to be shuffled out of the way. And what's also going to occur is the rehabilitation of Harvey Weinstein. If they did it with Roman Polanski, who sodomized a child, how in the world do you think they can't do it with Harvey Weinstein? Harvey Weinstein joked that, oh, these allegations against me, they're false, but you know what? I almost wish they were true. It'd make a hell of a movie. How much you want to bet before it's all over, you're going to be having some of Harvey Weinstein's white supremacist media buddies doing exactly that. They have refused to have any sort of media put out there that a steady drumbeat of anti-Harvey Weinstein vitriol, like they've been doing to R. Kelly and Bill Cosby. They refuse to actually hit the drum against this guy. But they will be doing a drumbeat to equivocate. Before it's all over, Harvey Weinstein's going to be presented as a tragic character. Well, basically, he's this loser routine that he put on. You'll be seeing it again. The white media will be presenting it to you again in the future. You will see the rehabilitation of Harvey Weinstein's image. The rehabilitation of Harvey Weinstein, trying to put together this idea that, well, Harvey Weinstein was just misunderstood. The lie will be, oh, he was a lonely guy. But these actresses, they tried to manipulate this guy. He was a guy who was a victim of circumstance, and he wasn't a ladies' man, and just look at him, and he was awkward and this, and all the lies that he's told about himself. Oh, it was because I'm fat. And what'll happen is they'll be repeating those lies. And Harvey Weinstein's victims will instead become a bunch of avaricious model actress wannabes, a bunch of talentless ingenues who were angry at the fact that the phone stopped ringing and Harvey Weinstein stopped handing them work. So that's how that one's going to play out. But that's going to be a few years from now. In the near term, they're going to be basking in the warm glow of seeing all these heifers who have been calling themselves, thinking they were going to take this moment to wag their fingers. You're going to start seeing these white women who have been a little bit lippy in the last couple of years. You're going to hear all that go away. In fact, some of them, like a certain Hollywood actress that I had words with recently, they're going to be piping down real fast. They never really actually got started against them. And they definitely won't be taking this as a call to arms or a call to action. Get ready to see Harvey Weinstein through a dummy company, through a front company, some sort of front entity for him. Or at least, at the very least, expect to see the people who were with him, expect to see them defending him. Expect to see people boldly defending Harvey Weinstein and saying, well, the charges had no merit and whoa, what kind of garbage is this? And a lot of them are going to be, don't be surprised when a number of them are the same actresses who you thought were opposed to him. These Hollywood actresses who have been running their mouths, many of them who are middle-aged to elderly in Hollywood being anybody, any woman over 30, any man over 40. But mostly these women, they already know what the deal is. Soon as Harvey Weinstein walks, they're going to be piping down again. They're not going to be going on any sort of jihad. They'll understand, okay, the white supremacist males have asserted themselves, and, well, we better get with the program if we expect to get any sort of work. They understand that. And white supremacy will be okay with the idea of putting some of these aging actresses in movies anyway because they get to have them as trophies. Hey, here goes what's her name over here, who was running her mouth about Harvey Weinstein. Hey, take a look at her. Yeah, we got her in something over here, but we have her around basically as a trophy. She knows that we're a bunch of white supremacist rapists, and she was talking about how she was free from us, and hey, take a look at her. Yep, things go on as they always have. Oh, and don't expect to be seeing her doing any crusading against us. She understands that if she keeps opening her mouth, she'll never work in this town again. But it's much more sweet to force her to have to come to work and to know that the very individuals who she was wagging her finger at and who she was denouncing, well, they're rapists, you know they're rapists, and you got to come to work knowing that. You have to go on auditions knowing that. You have to ask them to give you a role, to give you work, knowing exactly what they are and that they're not going to be punished. And you better keep your mouth shut. You better shut the hell up. Not because you can bring them down. You can't. You've just proven to yourself you can't bring them down. But you keep your mouth shut because it annoys them when you talk too much. They like the only time a woman opens her mouth ought to be when she's on her knees. Ain't that what Weinstein said? Or at least one of his compatriots. Oh, yes, sir. The casting couch. I would love to say that the casting couch will be open for business again, but truth be told, the casting couch was never closed to begin with.